Right here, once you open up our project 2, we have our files on the right side, and you open up project 2, and here's our standard setup for GUI. We have all of our information in here. Once you run it, you get our figure, and over on the left side, under data selection, under data set, you have the option to pick commodity prices or individual commodity price. If you pick commodity price indices, then you will get a list of the commodity price indices below, which you can also select. And those will change the years on the right side, and then with the start year and the end year, and then you can go back over and you have also the option to pick individual commodity prices. And from dataset options, pick from a list of individual commodity prices, and can pick China imports. Again, you see that the start year and end year changed from before, which you're also able to select, and they change down in bar graph also. Those are the two types of graphs you're able to do, line and bar. For the first dataset option, we had a pop-up menu. That's pop-up menu 1, and here's all the code for it. And so we set up a loop running, and right up here you can see we have the values going so that we're getting the proper indices depending on whether you picked the commodity price or the individual prices, and that ensures that we're getting the right values. And then we have a loop going through here that will turn on and off the below prediction button, and will give the proper values for pop-up menu. Okay, so now we're at pop-up menu 2, which was the second option where you picked commodity prices or individual prices. And here we load our external data, and we're setting up so that when you pick, depending on which item you pick from those two drop options, you'll get the proper years on the right side for graphing. And so this is we have a switch case loop going, and so it's running through and providing the proper years based on indexing that we set up. And when we come back up, you can see up here we have a D value set up, which we index so that for depending on the item you pick in the second drop-down menu, the second pop-up menu, it will give the column from the external data that is the specific price index that you chose.
Okay, so then now that we have our years displayed on the right side over here, we can pick our start year. So we'll start at 1982, and then we can pick our end year for our graph, and we'll just make it a small one. We'll go to 2003. If we hit graph, it displays the graph on our graph window over on the side, and we can change the years to different years if we would like to, and we can graph it again, and it should change the graph on the screen to the right. And then we can also do month, which is the month of the selected commodity by it displays the values and all the years for that specific month, and that is the line graph. Okay, so under push button 7, this is the button we click in order to graph the line graphs of all the years, or only the years. And we have here is var1 and var2 are our year selections, and we use those to index our D vector that has the specific commodity selected, the pricings, and depending on what our years that we selected is, we set up how much data to get from D to graph those years. And then down here we put down the information that will graph them properly. So pop-up menu 10 is the one in which we choose our months for the graphing months for all the years. So we just, depending on which month you chose in pop-up menu 10, it would show it. Comes down into our case loop here, and it chooses the specific years for each individual price so that it graphs it properly when we click the graphing button. So push button 8 is the button that we click in order to graph make the graph of the specific month by the years that we selected, and that comes from what we saved. This Y is saved from our drop-down menu when we selected the month, and that indexes which data from our vector D that contains the specific commodity, and it simply just plots it over to the right. And this loop here just simply changes the title. So now for the bar graph, if you it's the same thing as before with a line graph. You can choose which years you would like to graph on there, and we can graph it. We can graph the yearly representations on there, the bar graph, or we can choose it to graph quarterly, and there's different quarter selection on this side over here. And if, say, we wanted to only graph from quarter 3, we can graph that on the screen. And then we can choose quarter 4 as well, and we can continue to change the years, even down to 2013, graphing quarter 4. And there it is. So for push button 10, this is the button that we click in order to graph the bar graphs by years, the yearly bar graphs, and it's simply these are our var3 and var4 is the years that we choose, and that then indexes into the year function and gives it so that we select the information from D that we had defined earlier, and it simply just graphs that in a bar format. And then all the titles and the indexes are developed here. So okay, so for pop-up menu 19, this is the one where we choose which quarter we would like to graph the bar graphs with. And basically what we did in order to in order to index the quarters out of our year column that has all the different years and months on it, we decided to do everywhere that anytime that whatever you selected, it would go to that month in all the years, and then these H+1 and H+2 would basically make it true for the first month we selected and the next 2 months afterwards. And that will give us, so for case 1, it'll give you the first quarter, and then it goes all the way through down to case 4, which case 4 will give you the fourth quarter. And since 2013 does not have the entire last quarter, it only has the first month of the last quarter, we wrote code to get rid of the last. It's still got the information for all the for all of the prices, got all the information for the prices in that quarter except for the year 2013.
To view the prediction for individual commodity prices, you can select individual commodity price. And for aluminum, cocoa beans, copper, cotton, and crude oil, you have the option to make a prediction. So if you click on crude oil, you'll notice that this display prediction button is now selectable. And you can click it and it'll display the predicted price. And from there you can check out the other ones. You can look at copper, display the price. And then if you want to go on and graph like before, you can select something like bananas and you'll see that the price disappeared and the option is no longer available. So here we have our push button 11, which is our last option on the figure that gives the prediction. And up here we're bringing in our D value, which we explained before was the column of our price data. So depending on which value you pick, your commodity, whichever specific commodity you pick, you'll get your specific data with D. And below that we have the clock running, and this is giving us the date and time that the program is run on, and that's going into a variable, and we're using that in our EMA, which right here we can see the equation that we are given in the project, and we determined a K value to give us a good fit for our EMA. And below that we have the value that our EMA puts out based on the commodity that was chosen, and the EMA will print out where you saw the line before, and it prints out that price value.